To say that Halo Infinite has been a success so far would be a massive understatement. For the most part, the Halo community is in agreement that this is a honestly great game out of 343, and that it's mostly a return to form for Halo as a series. And it's pleasing not only new players, but also veterans of the franchise, which I think is already a good sign. And aside from the shitty progression system, I think it's overall agreed that this game is pretty fucking great. However, as always, this game has its detractors, and today's video shows an example of it. Namely, some guy who tries to argue that the multiplayer sucks. It's safe to say he got completely ratioed on his video. But anyway, that's enough talk out of me. Let's get this response on the road.
Hello, welcome back to a new video game review. So recently I've been playing the new Halo Infinite multiplayer mode, and as an avid fan of the Halo series, I just had to play this game. I was looking forward to it so much, and it just was kind of disappointing, to be honest. So there's going to be a brand new Halo game coming out in the beginning of December with a brand new story involving the Master Chief. And in order to build up hype around the game, it looks like they've decided to release the multiplayer mode of the game in advance. Quite an interesting tactic, I have to say, and they've even allowed people to play the game for free if you have a membership pass on the Xbox Gamer Pass. So you don't even have to buy the game, which is quite nice of them. But to be honest, if this was a standalone multiplayer game, I would not even spend a single penny on this game, because it's just so bare bones and basic, and so shallow.
Okay, so I can already tell where he's coming from, and I can see why. He calls the game bare bones and shallow, even though it's literally marketed as a beta, so of course it's not going to have enough content to be considered a full launch.
Now, this would probably reveal my age a little bit, but I first played Halo back when I was a teenager, when the very first Halo came out.
We do not care.
Unfortunately, since then, it's been over 15 years, and the multiplayer game has not really changed at all since the early 2000s. And instead of getting better, I feel like the multiplayer part of Halo has actually just gotten worse over the years. You see, the thing is with Halo, it's not really a multiplayer game. You don't play Halo for the multiplayer. You play it for the engaging, rich sci-fi story, the cool characters, and the cool set pieces and cinematic gaming events.
Then why is it that people are still playing Halo 3 to this day? Why is it that so many people are flocking over to Halo Infinite? If people supposedly don't play Halo for the multiplayer, then why is it garnering such a player base at this point? And in the case of the older Halos like Halo 3 and even Halo 5, why are they still having a multiplayer presence so large? And if the Halo multiplayer scene supposedly got worse, why is Infinite well received by both OG fans and newer fans? As for the second part of his statement, in regards to the campaign, yes, I do feel it's a pretty important part of Halo. However, I don't feel it's so important that it overshadows the multiplayer completely. Because if that were the case, then Halo 3's multiplayer would be completely dead by this point.
And when it comes to being an online multiplayer shooter, I always felt like Halo was like the poor man's version of games like Battlefield or Call of Duty or Rainbow Six Siege even.
Okay, I fail to see how it is that an arena shooter such as Halo compares to Battlefield or Call of Duty in this scenario. Literally, the only thing they have in common is that they're all first-person shooters. This is like comparing apples and oranges. Actually, no, apples and fucking bananas. Because all of them are like different types of first-person shooters. It's like comparing Escape to Tarkov to Titanfall. It's just not a comparison that can be made. Also, I just whiffed like several shots on the battle rifle there, I'm sorry.
I feel like there's lots of popularity behind the Halo online multiplayer version, mainly because a lot of people like me grew up as teenagers and Halo was their first. For a lot of people, Halo was our first experience, our first taste of an online shooting game or a multiplayer first-person shooting game.
So he mentions earlier that everyone plays Halo for the campaign, but suddenly switches up and immediately says Halo was the first online multiplayer shooter that a lot of people played. This is literally a direct contradiction to his earlier statement where he's like, oh my god, no one plays Halo for the multiplayer.
And maybe there's lots of nostalgic value behind that, reminds us of our childhood. But for a game that's called Halo Combat Evolved, the combat has really not evolved in any single way. The gameplay is almost exactly the same as what it was when I played it as a teenager. It hasn't changed at all, apart from the graphical fidelity has improved dramatically, obviously, as technology advances, but really, the core gameplay has remained exactly the same.
So right here, he tries to claim that 343 is feeding off nostalgia bait, which is a worry I initially had as well. However, after playing the first two flights and the early launch or beta or whatever you want to call what's going on right now, most of my concerns in regards to the nostalgia bait, quote unquote nostalgia bait, are pretty much assuaged by this point. The next claim he makes is that the core gameplay hasn't changed at all. Motherfucker, did you forget the sprint button exists, also equipment, and a more varied sandbox? And on top of it, there's a very, very different vehicle sandbox to what was in Halo CE. Also, in this game, combat is more momentum focused, kind of like a hybrid of Halo 3 and Halo 5's gameplay, where a combination of movement, gun skill, and just overall intelligent tactics helps you win fights.
And there's a lot of things about the Halo gameplay mechanics that I really dislike as an online multiplayer shooter. Number one, there's no down-the-barrel Ironsights aiming.
Bruh, did he just complain about Ironsights in a Halo game? Homie, look, if you want Ironsights in a Halo game, the Halo 5 servers are still up, okay? You can always go over there, there's no harm in it. Halo 5's a good game. But to say a lack of Ironsights is what makes Halo Infinite bad is just one of the stupidest reasons I think I've ever heard in a video. Plus, didn't you earlier state that you enjoyed Combat Evolved, which in turn would mean you wouldn't really mind the lack of Ironsights?
Usually in most first-person shooter games, you hold down the right mouse button and you aim down the sights. This doesn't exist in the game. Sure, there's some weapons that do have scopes, like obviously the sniper rifle, the battle rifle. A few other weapons have scopes as well, but it's not really a true down-the-barrel kind of aiming system. If you right-click the mouse using any kind of weapon, it will just do kind of a 2x or 1.5x zoom, and the whole field of vision just zooms in slightly towards the center. It's not down-the-barrel sights aiming. And I really dislike this. A lot of the weapons you just fire from the hip. It's more like a spray and pray kind of arcadey combat shooter. That's what it feels like.
So apparently lack of proper ADS, well, quote unquote proper ADS, is somehow a terrible thing. It's like he almost doesn't realize as though ADSing literally does nothing for you in this game. You can choose to ADS if you want, but it's not really going to help you all that much, unless it's from a range. And even then, a lot of the shots you can hit from range can be done without a scope. And fairly easily in the case of weapons such as the commando, the carbine, and the battle rifle.
Another thing I don't like is the power shields and the armor. So the Spartans obviously have this very advanced and powerful shield system, which basically makes everyone a massive bullet sponge. I just prefer my online shooters to have more realism when it comes to shooting.
Fuck, kill me, please.
Oh my god. How do you expect a science fiction shooter about a fictional war with alien enemies fought by super soldiers to be realistic? Mate, I hate to break it to you, but this is Halo Infinite, not Tarkov. If you want realism, you're going to be disappointed by a great deal of shooters, especially if it's a shooter like Halo, which is a science fiction arena shooter, where realism is most definitely not even close to a fucking priority.
In Halo Infinite multiplayer, you have to empty almost your whole clip of ammunition into someone's head before it actually takes them down. It just feels like headshots don't really mean anything, and in most encounters, engagements with enemy players in the multiplayer mode, it's always just who can spray and pray most accurately, who can empty their magazine into the enemy as quickly as possible and then finish it off with a melee attack.
Okay, first off, hitting your enemies in the head, especially with weapons like the battle rifle and sidekick, are pretty goddamn important to the game. Like, there are literally some weapons actually geared around hitting headshots. Like, you can still go for body shots with them, but it's not recommended. And secondly, each fight is based off of which player has the better aim, and which knows how to use movement capabilities and the map design to their advantage. How do you do that, you may ask? Well, pro tip, stop playing the game like it's Call of Duty, and instead try and actually understand the game. I know it's mentally taxing for you to, try and figure out how to use more than 2 brain cells on a game, but please, for the love of God, try and understand Infinite. Like, at least attempt to understand it. Like, you literally said you were an OG Halo fan, so I would have expected a bit more reasoning out of you, but I guess not.
I just did not find the shooting gameplay to be very fun. The weapons, although they look cool, they just don't really feel deadly. They don't feel dangerous. The bullets just don't really feel like they have much of an impact when you shoot them and get a hit on an enemy body. It just feels like it's bouncing off. Feels like you're shooting a BB gun pellet, or some kind of air rifle.
Mate, what the hell are you on about? Why do I get the feeling that you did nothing but spray and pray with the assault rifle from halfway across the map, and then proceed to try and get a kill with the plasma pistol without charging it first? Like, right now, that's the vibe I'm getting from you.
Now, in many ways, the game is very similar to Battlefield 2042 in the way that you have a map, and there's different points you have to capture, and there's vehicles. You've got jeeps, you've got tanks, you've got aircraft, all of the vehicles you'll know from the Halo series. And it does feel very similar to Battlefield 2042, but in a much more shallow, diluted version and form.
Okay, so that statement right there just tells me all I need to know. It literally just lets me know you only played BTB instead of playing the full selection of modes. And also, again, what a retarded comparison. Comparing a war shooter like Battlefield to a more tactical arena shooter like Halo, it's just asinine. Like, why? How does the comparison even fit? Oh right, it doesn't. God man, I swear I'm losing brain cells listening to this. Someone help, please! Get me off this commentary shit. Oh my god.
BRB, gonna go bash my head into the fucking wall!
Everything is just on a much smaller scale. The maps are much smaller, which kind of makes it feel meaningless to have all these vehicles. In Battlefield 2042, the maps are much bigger, so it makes sense to have vehicles to traverse the distances and get from point to point. In Halo Infinite multiplayer, the vehicles just seem kind of meaningless and pointless to have there. There's also barely any customization, so there's no mods and attachments you can add to the weapons. They're all very bog standard stuff you'd expect from the Halo series.
Oh my god, why? Why do I do this to my... Sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind listening to this shit. Hang on.
There's no different classes, there's no assault, recon, sniper, or engineers. Everyone's just like the same Spartan kind of loadout. And the game might be fun for like a quick few 10 minutes, but after a couple hours, it gets very repetitive and tedious. There's not really much depth to the game.
Bruh, I genuinely feel sorry for you if you think Halo Infinite needs classes. Oh my god. You hear my voice by this point, it's just the voice of a broken man. Like, I've lost too many brain cells, I may have even lost a part of my soul. Is this what Vietnam veterans feel? Like, this gotta be some form of PTSD, I'm telling you.
I also found the maps to be very boring. All the maps are the same. There's only a few maps by the looks of it, and they're always these kind of... They all just look kind of the same. It's always in some kind of mountain valley. There's trees, rocks, streams, a couple ruined buildings. And that's it. Where's the variety? Why can't we have some different maps, like on a space station, or on the Pillar of Autumn, or on a Covenant ship, or on some kind of space station orbiting Earth?
Because the Pillar of Autumn got blown the fuck up in Halo CE at the end. And on top of it, you only played BTB, so you're basically just judging all maps in the game, including Slayer, as all the same, even though we know that Slayer maps are a very different type of map from BTB maps.
Why is it always in some kind of mountain valley with a load of trees and rocks? And I also don't like how everyone looks the same. They all look like the same character with the same armor. Why are the Spartans fighting each other unless it's some kind of civil war? Why couldn't they have one team as Spartans, the other team as Covenant, and they play as elites? That would make it more dynamic, more interesting, in my opinion. So yeah, I wasn't really impressed with the Halo Infinite multiplayer mode. Very bare bones, very basic, doesn't bring anything new to the table, very shallow, and I got extremely bored very quickly.
Okay, so while I agree customization is dog shit in this game, so much for saying that people who were fans of Halo Reach's customization would like that, because that really went nowhere. But there's a reason why Spartans are fighting each other in here. It's because multiplayer is canonically the way that they train themselves. But anyway, that's the video for today. I'm just gonna go over to the corner and just wait for campaign to come out at this rate. I'm bored as fuck. See you guys in December.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.